Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my March book review. Quick synopsis, I decided in 2018 to make a resolution to read one book a month. So far, so good. The way I start my book reviews is I basically tell you like, yes, I like it, no, I don't, or like, eh. Just keep it short and sweet so that if you want absolutely no more information, like no spoilers at all, then you can just be left with my opinion. Otherwise, I'll get into it a little bit more. I'm not gonna like fully summarize and spoil these books, but that's just kind of how it goes. So this month's book for March was my first nonfiction that I've done, and it's The 4 Agreements, which is a wisdom book, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. And at the top it says it's a practical guide to personal freedom, and it's like a Toltec wisdom book. So I'm gonna start this off by saying it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite of the, I've only read 3 books so far in the year, but it was my least favorite probably of the 3. With that said, it's kind of comparing apples to oranges because again, this is a nonfiction wisdom book. The other 2 were more like exciting stories. I did like it. I did like parts of it. I kind of picked and chose what I feel like I liked from this book. But I think, okay, I first heard about this on YouTube. Jen M is the person that I heard talk about it, and then I heard a few other people talk about it. And so I thought that it was going to be this like life-changing thing. The concept is that there are 4 agreements that that they say that you should kind of rewire your brain to think in terms of, and if you're able to do that, you can transform your life. And so maybe I put a little bit too much emphasis on it. I did get good pieces from this. I feel like I'm contradicting myself, but overall it disappointed me just a little bit. If you're interested in it, I do think it's worth a read. Again, I feel like you can kind of pick and choose. Sometimes it was like a little bit too much for me, like a little too forceful. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, and I'm always by the school of thought that like I will hear anybody out when it comes to like anything, honestly, like religion, rules, I don't know. And then I kind of like to use my personal freedom, choices, knowledge, etc. to like, I don't know. I guess I take everything in life with a grain of salt, and then I use my own filter to kind of like choose what I want to interpret. I don't know, is that bad? Is that weird? So all in all, it was okay, but I do think it's worth a read if you're interested because it's really short and easy to get through. So, sorry, that was kind of all over the place, but I'm going to dive a little bit further into it now. So the concept, like I said, is that there are these 4 agreements that you kind of like agree with, and then your life will be transformed. The 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always try your best. So the 2 agreements that really like kind of meant the most to me, or that I took the most away from, were don't take anything personally and don't make assumptions. Those are 2 things that I definitely struggle with. Giving a little bit more background information on this, it kind of talks about that when you think about it, everything that we know as humans and everything in this world is ultimately just an agreement. Meaning, the English language, for example, you know, we all learn at a young age that like this is an earring and that this is a nose and so on and so forth, right? And we kind of agree collectively that that word means that item or whatnot. It also talks about how individual families, religions, people, races, cultures, etc. will kind of collectively agree on the way certain things should be done, whether that's maybe like the foods that are supposed to be eaten or the traditions that are supposed to be held or whatever, the types of people you should date, whether or not you should go to college, like all types of things. Those are just agreements that you kind of soaked up as a child, however you were influenced, whoever raised you, like the beliefs that they had and the things that they, like those kind of, whether or not you want to, like become ingrained in you. And then you base everything in life off of those like pre-agreed upon judgments that you already have in your head, if that makes sense. So if you are told your entire life that you have to go to college in order to amount to anything, you have to go to college, you know, you're worthless if you don't go to college, and everybody who didn't go to college is a loser. I don't know. This is just a random example I'm thinking of, you know, like if that's kind of what's always been taught to you, then that's kind of the agreement that you have, and then you're going to live your life being a judge always and being very critical of people who didn't go to college, whether or not they were successful or whatever, right? So it's this idea that as you get older, that's when you can finally kind of like make your own decisions and decide whether or not you want to continue with all the agreements you agreed upon as a kid. But the problem is they're so ingrained in your head by that time. So I like the concept and I hear it and I get it. And then, like I said, I read those 4 main agreements. Where I struggled was some of it was just, like I said earlier, a little too like, I don't even know the right word, a little too spiritual for me. And not to say that I'm not a spiritual person, but I just felt like this book kind of like did the most at certain parts. It also, like, there was a part that I didn't like. I folded the page down. It kind of like, I don't know. I really like the concept, right? Like, it talks about, okay, don't take anything personally, because absolutely nothing that anybody does is ever because of you. It's always because of them. And that is something like I definitely struggle with. I get my feelings hurt, blah, blah, blah. You know, and they even go as far to say that if somebody even insults you directly to your face and says like you have ugly brown hair or whatever, like even that is not because of you, it's because of them. And so like I definitely get it, but I still feel like there's like within reason though. Do you know what I mean? Like if somebody doesn't choose you for a job, but they choose someone else, like it was because of you, it wasn't because of them. Does that make sense? And that's not to say that that's the most negative thing in the world. Like it's just that that person was a better fit or that you have a different like journey. But I don't know, I think some of this stuff was just too literal for me. Maybe that's what it was. Not too spiritual, but like just too literal, just too like, you know, like this is how it should be and like go with it. I don't know. So again, I picked and choose what I liked out of this. I did take some stuff from it and I have kind of found myself trying to tweak my brain a little bit, like tweak the way I think about things. That other one, don't make assumptions, that's really good. It talks a lot about how like basically every conflict could be avoided if people just had the courage to ask clarifying questions and not make assumptions. And like that's actually really true in a lot of like interpersonal relationships for sure. You know, like romantic relationships, friendships, even like at work and stuff like that, colleagues or whatever. Like people are not always going to be in agreement on everything, but miscommunication or like misunderstanding is a huge area where then conflict arises. And so instead of like interpreting a text or like a glance that somebody gives you or interpreting something a certain way and just kind of like assuming things and making things up and writing with that story, like ask a question, clarify, like don't be afraid to just be direct, be straightforward, be honest. And that's something I've been trying to work on in general in my life because I tend to be a non-confrontational person. I tend to be like, I'm totally that girl who will like read a text that didn't have an exclamation point at the end, and the next thing I know I've created a story that the person on the other end of the text hates me. Like I've definitely been that girl. And so it's something that I've been trying to work on and I have gotten better with it. And again, just that if you have the courage to ask questions and just to be more direct, then like there's gonna be a lot less like drama and controversy and you know what I'm saying? And then yeah, the other two, be impeccable with your word, like mean what you say what you mean, stick to it, and always do your best. And it talks about how like sometimes you're gonna be sick or tired or like, you know, but as long as you always do your best, like meaning that your best will range depending on what's going on with you that day. And yeah, and again, I think that's part of what I didn't like was that it was too literal. It almost like at the end of the day, like we're humans, do you know what I mean? So I feel like some of the stuff it was asking you to do, like always do this, like, okay, yes, but like I'm a human, so I'm going to get my feelings hurt sometimes or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Let's see if there was anything else I wanted to read. I did like this part. I folded this down. It was talking about like changing, you know, your life, which I guess is the whole point of this book. It talks about forgiveness is the only way to heal. We can choose to forgive people because we feel compassion for ourselves. Meaning that like when you forgive, it talks about when you forgive other people, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. And I've heard that before, and it says, yeah, we must forgive those who have wronged us, not because they deserve it, but because we love ourselves so much that we don't want to keep paying for the injustice. So like if you're constantly bitter and upset and angry at somebody who did something, you're the only one who's hurting at the end of the day. And it's kind of like easier said than done. But I did like the way they like phrased that and talked about that. What else? Oh, and then it talks about how you always want to have control over your emotions and yourself. It talks about the difference between repressing your emotions and refraining from your emotions. You don't want to repress your emotions. You want to deal with each situation at hand and, you know, live this happy life, but you want to be able to refrain, hold in your emotions for the right moment, and kind of like be impeccable with your word. And I don't know, again, it's a nonfiction wisdom book, so it's something that just kind of you have to take what you personally get out of it. I definitely feel like this is one of my longer book reviews here, but there's a lot to say about it. In conclusion, again, it's a pretty short book. It's like 130 pages. Got through it pretty fast. I took it on an airplane. I wouldn't say it's like the juiciest airplane or like beach read, like not even close. This is like borderline an educational book. I mean, not really, but you know, it's something that if you're wanting some wisdom, you're wanting maybe a fresh perspective, give it a go, check it out. My friend also told me she listened to it on audiobook. That could be cool. Personally, it didn't seem like it was gonna be exciting enough for me to listen to it on audiobook. Like I almost like needed to read the words just to like have it sink in. But I might consider reading it again, maybe in a few months, just to like kind of revisit some of those concepts and see how I'm like doing with them, what I think about it now, that type of a thing. But yeah, the 4 agreements. I hope that was not too confusing of a book review. Check it out if you're so inclined. It was pretty good. It just wasn't as juicy as I was on like a real fun, juicy book kick, and then this was not that. So for April, I am reading a more juicy, exciting, breeze through fiction book, and it's called The Good Girl. I forget the author right this second, but so far so good, and I will see you guys in April's book review. Oh, and like in all my other videos in between. So please subscribe if you haven't already. It would mean the world to me, and I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.